The first chapter of The Great Gatsby begins with this passage. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. As soon as the bus doors closed, a woman sitting near me began talking on her phone. With a slight incline, I had taken a seat near the back, and she was seated to my left. There was a space between us. I was heading to the airport to a quiet little cabin I had rented in the countryside to work on a new project. The woman spoke quietly, perhaps mindful of the other passengers, but it was still loud enough for me to hear. I considered moving seats, but the only empty one was next to a young woman up front. I didn't want to startle her by suddenly sitting beside her, especially considering how I must look, an unusual figure to say the least. I decided to practice a bit of mental discipline, trying to transform the woman's chatter into the sound of birds chirping on a warm spring day. But no matter how hard I tried, my ears stayed keenly attuned to her voice. Her conversation was about ordinary things, the endless chores of running a household, complaints about grocery shopping, and the struggles of raising kids who still weren't old enough to fend for themselves. The person on the other end of the call was either deeply patient or simply tuning her out, while she went on and on, barely pausing to take a breath. I found myself longing for the meditation music I had on my phone and regretted leaving my headphones at home. Just as I was mentally kicking myself, the call ended, and I breathed a sigh of relief. At last, I thought, the rest of the journey would be peaceful. But she soon made another call. This time, the tone was different. From what I could make out, she was speaking with someone from an insurance company. She explained, in a voice that was quieter but tinged with desperation, that the cancer she had undergone surgery for a year ago had returned, and she was due to start chemotherapy again. She asked, almost pleading, whether her insurance would cover the costs. The person on the other end was giving vague, jargon-filled answers, seemingly avoiding any commitment. The woman spoke more urgently now, almost as if begging. She said she didn't know how she would get by if the insurance wasn't renewed, that her children were still too young to fend for themselves, and that she couldn't afford to handle this on her own. Until that moment, I had kept my eyes turned to the window, but now I glanced over at her. She was still leaning against the bus window, holding her phone to her ear. A single tear traced its way down her right cheek, the side facing me. Her words seemed to pierce right through my ribs and lodge deep in my chest. In that moment, I was reminded of how fragile life is, how we all stand at the edge of an abyss at times, trembling in the face of forces we can't control. The soul is vast, while the body is so small. We can never truly know what someone else is going through. From the moment we are born, we are passengers on a rock hurtling through space at dizzying speeds. Our lives, like the planet, are in constant motion, sometimes shaking us to our core. In this world of uncertainty, pain cannot be measured or compared. No one's suffering is insignificant. Every life is too complex to sum up in a sentence. Not yours, not mine. Today, 8 billion people are experiencing life in their unique ways. As I sat on the plane to Portland and later on the bus winding through the Oregon countryside, I couldn't shake the image of that tear running down her cheek. How strange and sad it was that, despite the beauty of the scenery, I still felt such sorrow. Perhaps loss always carries with it a mix of pain and beauty. I silently wished for her many more summers ahead, filled with life. We should show more compassion toward everyone we meet, because we never truly know what battles they are fighting, deep within their hearts, where their soul meets bone. There are things too painful for words hidden in every person's chest. That evening, I read a story on a coaching website that stayed with me. It was about a man rushing to make it to an appointment. He was frustrated by the slow-moving car in front of him, which seemed to crawl along the road at a snail's pace. No amount of honking or flashing lights made a difference. The car stayed slow. Just as he was about to lose his temper, he noticed a small sticker on the car's bumper. It read, "Disabled driver. Please be patient." The moment he saw the sticker, everything changed. His anger evaporated, replaced by a sense of calm. He found himself wanting to protect the driver ahead of him. Arriving late to his appointment no longer seemed important. That night, he thought about it. Would he have been patient if the car hadn't had that sticker? Would he have just honked louder, more angrily? Why is it that we fail to see the invisible stickers people carry, the ones that say, "I've just lost my job, I'm battling illness, I'm grieving a divorce, I can't sleep at night, I've lost someone I love"? We are all warriors in our way, each carrying invisible burdens on our backs, each with a story that no book could ever contain. So, let's be a little kinder, a little more patient with one another. A friend from India once shared this story with me. A man sat on a train, lost in thought, while his 2 young children ran up and down the aisles, shouting and playing. The other passengers grew increasingly annoyed, some glaring at the father, who seemed oblivious. Eventually, one passenger could no longer hold back. "What kind of father are you?" they snapped. "Your children are running wild, and you just sit there smiling at them. Don't you think you should explain to them how to behave?" The man looked up, his face blank with shock, as if emerging from a fog. "I've been trying to figure out how to explain it to them," he said quietly. "Their mother passed away yesterday. We're on our way to her funeral, and I don't know how to tell them yet that she's gone."